Hi everyone. I found this week informed consent is quite an extensive process. I chose an informed consent from a local counseling practice due to the complication of the law and my desire to understand Ohio's law since I will be practicing in the heartland. The informed consent I chose is 4 pages long, which makes me wonder if this is actually read in its entirety by clients. The counselor includes an introduction to briefly describe counseling and is sure to mention that it takes courage to choose counseling. Informs the client of the length of time of each session, which is about 50 minutes. Offers a copy of the Code of Ethics upon request. She writes about her qualifications, which includes her degrees, the university she attended, her affiliations with professional counseling organizations. She covers what to expect in a session, the importance of clients' active participation in counseling, the length of each session once again is covered, how to receive maximum benefit of the counseling itself, and the right to terminate therapy at any time. If treatment is mandated, there is a release for the client information to the mandated agency or court or parole officer, what have you. They cover drugs and alcohol that are not permitted before counseling, and it also covers the consequences of such behavior. The next area of consent covers risks versus benefits of counseling. The next area is the confidentiality and the exceptions to this requirement, which includes a danger to self or others, abuse, judge-mandated release, if client sues a counselor or makes false accusations, and also in the consultation of professionals within the field. The next area of informed consent is social media. It says that personal relationships are prohibited between the counselor and client. The next area is minor clients and the consent requirements. And then the next area is litigation limitations. It says, due to the nature of the therapeutic process and the fact that it often involves making a full disclosure with regard to many matters that may be of confidential nature, it is agreed that should there be legal proceedings, such as but not limited to divorce and custody disputes, neither you, the client, or anyone else acting on your behalf will call on Cornerstone to testify in court or at any other proceeding, nor will a disclosure of the psychotherapy records be requested and or provided. I thought this was an interesting thing, so I wanted to read that word for word because I was taught in my last class that if it is a subpoena and it's signed by a judge, then we could get a motion to suppress, but we most likely are going to have to release that information. So I thought that that was an interesting thing to mention. It goes on to the emergency. If the counselor is unable to return your call within 15 minutes, they are to call 911 or the 24/7 local counseling and recovery service. The number for that recovery service is included in the consent. It does cover that the consent is written in plain language for clients' understanding. The fees and payments are discussed, including missed appointments. They require 24-hour notice. If they do not get a notice, they will bill in full. Also, a late arrival will mean the possibility of a shortened session, so they're not going to go into the next client's appointment time. It does discuss the possibility of referral to another agency for various reasons. Then it goes on to talk about the requirement of custody papers for treatment of a minor if parenting is shared, and they have that in bold, so that must cause problems at some point. Maintaining records for 7 years is their requirement. It talks about the security of records and record release. It talks about the procedure for dissatisfaction of services. So they do include on their informed consent the OCSWMFT board and the ACA They give the address and the phone number for both, so you can easily lodge a complaint. So here are the things that the state of Ohio does require, and it wasn't specifically listed, so I'm not sure if it has to be listed or if they just have to do this. So it talks about how if the client can't comprehend, then the counseling service will require either getting an interpreter or do a verbal consent with them, so if they can't read. Okay, and then it goes on to talk about the counselors, the social workers, and the marriage and family therapists who provide services via electronic means shall inform the clients and recipients of the limitations and risks associated with such services. So I'm assuming this particular firm does not do that because they don't talk about that. The next thing the state of Ohio covers that I find they do not is the counselor, social worker, and marriage and family therapist shall make it clear to the third party that he or she shall not have rights to access any part of the client's file, including any session in which they participated, unless the client signs a release. A counselor, social worker, or marriage or family therapist shall not make recommendation to courts, attorneys, or other professional concerning non-clients. So I don't know if that's something that they go over, if that should occur, but that is not a part of their informed consent. It then talks about when a court or other judicial body orders an evaluation, assessment, or other official report, the licensee shall inform the client of the parameter of the court order, which we did talk about that earlier, how they say that they will not call the counseling firm to ask them to do so, but then it does say that due to the parameters, the legal parameters, they may have to disclose information. A counselor, social worker, or marriage and family therapist shall only make recommendations to a court, attorney, or other professional concerning a client. So that is covered. And then also, counselors, social workers, or marriage and family therapists shall communicate information in ways that are both developmentally and culturally appropriate. Counselor, social worker, marriage and family therapist shall use a clear, understandable language. So that's just a plain language. But once again, talking about providing the necessary services, in example, arranging for a qualified interpreter or translator. Well, thanks for listening. Hopefully that was not too confusing. So you guys all have a great week.